All right, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. This is great. Today we have Lyn Buchanan. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background of Lyn Buchanan. Lyn Buchanan was one of the original military remote viewers working out of military intelligence, and he has been a pioneer in the remote viewing community called CRV. CRV stands for Controlled Remote Viewing, and actually Lynn owns the trademark for CRV as Controlled Remote Viewing. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background for him. First of all, he's one of the nicest guys you've ever met. I can't say that for all military guys. I love the military, I think they're wonderful, but some of them have fighting personalities because that's what they do. They fight. Lynn is the nicest guy you ever met. And he has been completely selflessly training and getting people to understand remote viewing. He never turns down an opportunity to talk about it. He's been on coast to coast. He's talked about it, just about every place, and he explains it in a way that people can really understand it. So you're getting it from someone who actually worked with Ingo Swann. And Ingo was one of the original people who invented the whole idea of what was going on in his head. And Lynn will talk about that. So you're going back to, if Ingo was Yoda, then that would make Lynn Luke Skywalker. or no, because who trained under, I'm not sure who trained under Yoda. But anyway, he's one of the original guys that did that. So you have the ability to ask him a lot of questions. And the one thing I do really want to emphasize here with Lynn is that not everybody has an ability to connect the CRV method with people's understanding. And Lynn has that gift. He makes it so that you can understand it. And he breaks it down into the basics in a way that is very unusual. So when you hear him talk about the stuff that he does, he also teaches courses in CRV. I want you to feel free to ask him questions, and I guarantee he'll give you answers that you'll understand. He will be able to connect it. If there's anybody that should be on national broadcast television, it's Lynn. So without further ado, I'm going to be taking notes with regard to the questions you write here on the live stream. So if you have questions you want to ask him about CRV, Controlled Remote Viewing, about himself, about his approach to teaching, that's great. But I would like it if you asked some questions about some of his most unusual experiences. He's had some experiences. Lynn, if no one asks, I'm going to ask somebody to ask you about the hands on the control panel. That question. So if no one asks about that, I'll ask about that. But I'm going to shut up now and let Lynn take it away from themselves. The only other thing I want you all to know is that I will be taking this live stream down very shortly after it's finished and putting it back up again tomorrow in edited form. The audio will be perfect, the video will be perfect, everything will be perfect. So don't get upset when it goes away after the hour, because it will come back and it will be on YouTube as well as farsightprime.com. Lynn, I'm going to be quiet now, and you just start. You have it's close to 500 people watching you right now, and so it's up to you.
Okay. When Courtney invited me to do this, by the way, thank you. It's a great honor. I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, tell everybody about yourself. And so I've printed out a little thing here. I'll read it. My name is Lyn Buchanan. I was a remote viewer for the military's Controlled Remote Viewing Unit for 8.5 years before I retired. I became one of the trainers, the database manager and small unit, so I had a bunch of other duties. when I retired from the service, I began working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, working with the largest wide area computer network in the world, and was tied into that and doing the programming on it and all that. I began training CRV in the civilian arena when the existence of the military unit became declassified in public knowledge. I teach all levels of the CRV method, which was invented by Ingo Swann and then implemented by the military, such as the basic, intermediate, advanced, post-advanced courses for CRV monitors, security monitors, project managers, database managers, analysts, report writers, and so on, and I've done this for different corporations to build their own controlled remote viewing unit within their corporation. And I also teach specialty courses for different applications like medical applications, police work, scientific research and development, geological work, finding minerals, gambling, and so on, the different applications. I live in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and these days, with the COVID and all that, I teach online. I've worked many military projects while in the service, some of which are still classified, and many of which are now available through the Freedom of Information Act. I've worked with Courtney for several years as a board member of the Farsight Institute. I have a website, crviewer.com, crviewer.com. I have five books out. One is The Seventh Sense, which is about controlled remote viewing and my time in service using it. There's an Italian version of it called Il Settimo Senso, and there's one translation in Romanian that I haven't been able to get a copy of, one in German and one in Japanese that aren't out yet. I have another book, Gravity Can Be Your Friend, and I have a few fantasy adventure books that I've ghost written for my good friend Rose Estes, who was the inventor of that series, if you remember, the Create Your Own Adventure series. I have a bachelor's degree in linguistics, 2 master's degrees, one in linguistics and one dealing with linguistic psychology, what people mean when they say things, and psycholinguistics, the study of how to say things that will convey the best idea in the easiest way to other people. I also did operational work for my degrees in prison psychology. I'm a member of Mensa, the High IQ Society, for what that's worth. High IQ and a cup of coffee is worth about $1. You want more than that, you have to work for it like everybody else. My work these days centers around controlled remote viewing training. I presently have online courses, and the courses I have, we're getting set up with closed captioning for the hearing impaired, and the platform they're on has a very neat thing. If you want to go back and review one of the videos, which by the way are very short, they're average 6 minutes on one topic only, and that way you don't have to wade through hours of video. But if you click on the closed caption little symbol, it comes up with a search engine, and you can type in the word or phrase that you remember, and it will take you directly to that point in the video where that is used. We have weekly face-to-face webinars for the students. We have one on my Saturday night for Asia and Australia, one on Sunday morning for the Americas and Europe, and Africa. We have students all over the world. And all students have permanent access to the videos, the webinar recordings, and to me. So if you're not bored and ready to quit by now, I'll quit. Courtney said also to be open to any and all questions, and I am. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay, Lynn, I actually have been writing down some things. Before I ask you the questions that have been asked here, I want to bring up to people that Lynn is responsible for, can you hear me, Lynn? Okay. Lynn is responsible for the publication of Cosmic Voyage, my very first book on remote viewing. And the reason for that, and Lynn, let's not mention any other names, but the reason for that is that based on some bad advice I was given, I included basically the whole list of everybody who was in the unit, and I had sent it to the publisher, and they sent me to a very high-powered lawyer in New York, said this looks like it's good to go, asked me a bunch of other questions. He didn't miss the basic thing that with all those names in there, they would have canceled the book, the Defense Department would have canceled the book in a second. And then, yeah. And Lynn read the manuscript, and had he not intervened selflessly back and then, the book would never have seen the light of day. And none of you people would ever have heard about me. So if there's anybody that I owe a debt for most, and he had nothing to gain from it, if there's anyone I had anything to gain, anything to be grateful for most, it's Lynn. So if he was willing to help me out back in those days when there was nothing for me to gain, nothing for him to gain for it, you get a bit of an idea of what kind of soul he is. Now, Lynn, let me go to. Let me also mention, he did say he's a member of Farsight's board. He's been a member of Farsight's board for a great many years. So he's been helpful in so many ways you cannot imagine. He even was the one who taught me how to write proper minutes for the board. So anyway, I don't know if you remember that, Lynn, but back in the beginning, you had to tell me how it was done. Okay, so Lynn, here are some questions that people have been asking. Have you ever remote viewed something off planet?
On the what planet?
Off planet, meaning have you ever remote viewed something that was not on the planet Earth?
Is it interesting? You bet I have, yeah.
Why don't you tell them about any and everything, or whatever you want to say about that?
Ingo Swann had, when they sent the probe to Jupiter, he had previewed what the probe was going to find. 12 years later, it got there and found exactly what he had described, even though they said, oh, no, that can't be. And so that has inspired probably each one of us to go ahead and do off-planet work on our own. Okay, we were never officially tasked by the military for anything except military and intelligence things. So let's see. One, I got a task one time. All I got was some coordinates, a number for the project, and what I found was a large scoop and embedded in some sand, and so that's what I reported. 17 years later, they sent me feedback. The Mars rover had taken a picture of this large scoop that's sticking out of the sand on Mars, and it's there. So I didn't know that was my target. Also, I've done one of the most interesting was the Titan, the moon Titan. We've done other things. Courtney, do you know what an area book is?
An area book?
An area book.
No, why don't you tell me?
Okay. The State Department, when they send a diplomat over to some other country, they provide them first with what's called an area book. And it tells the customs, the religion, the social order, the political order, everything there is that's important to know for a diplomat, so that he won't get over there and do something stupid and start a war. You know? And there are a couple of companies involved in space research and development who have plans and their own astronauts, and they have had me do area books for their targeted planets that they want to go to, so that we won't start an interplanetary war or something. And so we first of all find out if there is sentient life there. If there is, we get their customs, their likes, dislike, do they eat astronauts or whatever, and things like this, so that when the astronauts get there, they won't be in danger in the relationship with that. So we've done a lot of that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'd like to just repeat something that Lynn has said. His website is crviewer.com. Now, unlike when I use my own software, I put it on the screen. In the edited version that you'll put up tomorrow, I'll put up tomorrow, it will have it on the screen. But just for people here, it's crviewer.com. And Lynn, that's the best way for people to contact you. Is that right?
Yeah, it really is.
Okay.
And that leads to the courses I teach. It also has 250 practice targets where if you're wanting to get your structure together and how you write your reports and all, you bring it up, it shows you the target, and then you write your report as though you were viewing and how you would report it. And then I have over 450 more targets where you don't see the target. They're there for practice viewing. We don't track anyone, and so it's totally private. If you have a bad session, you don't have to tell anybody. If you have a great session, you have total bragging rights.
Okay. Lynn, you have a bachelor's. Let's go back to your first degree. You have a bachelor's in linguistics. Remote viewing is sort of a language. How do you find that background in linguistics has that helped you in your understanding of remote viewing?
This is my own personal assessment, okay? In the military unit, we had several of the viewers who have linguistic backgrounds and spoke other languages, and I believe it helps. Yeah. Now, I also know that for any psychic, your vocabulary lets you express what you perceived. And so if you perceive things that you don't have a word for, nobody finds out about it. Nobody knows what it is. And so the information doesn't get to anyone who can use it. And so your things like your vocabulary, your grammar, your educational level, where you can understand things that you perceive, I think these all have an effect on the outcome of your ability. They don't seem to have an effect on your natural ability.
Interesting. So, Lynn, here's a question. Can a remote viewer choose his or her own target?
Sure, but I would caution you to learn how to do the remote viewing first, because you can pollute yourself very heavily We have a thing called Stray Cat. It's an acronym, STRAY, subliminal transfer of your own recollections, your own anxieties, and your own yearnings to CAT, consciously accessible uh, uh, terms. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Someone asked, is there such a thing in CRV as stage 6 or stage 7?
Both. Yes. The CRV that is taught to the public now has 7 stages. The 6 are under your control. Stage 7 is sort of what was thrown in by Ingo. It's stuff that happens totally without your control. Something just hits you broadside. You label it as stage 7 and mark it down and keep going. But yeah, there are 7 stages taught to the public. Ingo, before he died, called me and asked me to come up and spend about 6 months there and learn up through stage 11. He said that he had developed through stage 18, which he wasn't going to teach anybody, but he asked me to come up and learn through stage 11. At that same time, my mother was 99 years old and, in very poor health. I couldn't leave. And then before I got a chance to take advantage of that, Ingo himself had died. And so, but taught to the public, we have 7 stages.
Okay. I'm writing down a question here before it scrolls off the screen. Okay. This is a weird one, Lynn, but this is just what someone asked. Can you kill someone with your mind? I guess this is in reference to the goat phenomenon. So maybe you could explain the goat issue and can you kill someone with your own mind and maybe some of the intentions that the military originally thought when they were experimenting with it in the early days?
Yes, you can. And there was someone in the military who very stupidly had that idea. The movie The Men Who Stare at Goats shows Lynn killing the goat. It was another sergeant who did that. It did happen. And it wasn't me. I killed the computers. I killed about $50 million worth of computers, but I didn't kill the goat. I would never would have. But the thing is that is not remote viewing. Remote viewing is the collection of information that is called, it's actually beyond remote influencing. It's called remote control. And I find it very distasteful. I find it potentially ripe for just evil uses, and I will not teach it to anyone, period.
Lynn, perhaps I could ask a related but different question on this. People don't know about this. If you think it's not appropriate, just tell me that it's not appropriate. But one time you told me a very interesting story about how you were assigned to do a computer demonstration, and it was a real big one. You were really sort of hyped up for doing it, and you'd done a lot of days or weeks of preparation to get it right. But there was somebody else in the military, some other guy who was a computer guy, who was jealous. And you had it just sort of set up. But anyway, something happened, and then Albert Stubblebine, General Albert Stubblebine, brought you in afterwards, after the whole thing was done, and asked if you had done something with your mind onto the computers, and he wanted to know, and you thought he was going to be upset, but in fact he was elated. Do you mind telling that story?
Okay, yeah. The field station where I worked was an international eavesdropping station, and we had 12 different countries that had their computers and their listening posts in that one station. The computers all worked different languages. They didn't tie together and all that. They had different operating systems and all. And so I was assigned to write a program that would run on all those 12 different systems, connecting them together. So basically what I made was a mini internet for those 12 systems. And there was another sergeant who wanted the job. I was chosen over him, and it took me like 6 months to write this program. So anyway, all the generals were in the room. I was there, ready to do my little song and dance. And I went to the bathroom to make sure my hair was in place and no wrinkles in my uniform and all that. When I came back, everybody was getting seated and ready. And I did my introduction, turned around and hit the enter key. And when I did, it went blank. And of course, they all started laughing at me. And I looked up, and this other sergeant was in the back of the room. He had snuck in there while I was gone and done something to that. And when I looked up, he was in the back of the room, and he pointed at me like this, did like he was firing a gun, and he said, "Gotcha," and turned around, laughed and turned around and walked off. I got flaming angry. I have always had PK ability, and since about age 12. And when I got flaming angry like that, the station went down. The entire station went down. All the computers, all the intelligence computers. Found out years later that the intelligence computers in many of those other countries had gone down as well. And so it was a massive mess. And we had no intelligence collection in that method for what is still a classified amount of time. Come to find out, the Russians were spying on us, and they didn't have, theirs went down too. So anyway, that's what that was. General Stubblebine. Well, there was a captain in there who had just stepped in because he wanted to see that many generals in one place. And he had been trained by General Stubblebine to spot psychic events. He recognized it for what happened. And so anyway, I knew what had happened. I stayed quiet about it. And about 2 months later, General Stubblebine came to the field station to install a new commander. When he did, they called me into the new commander's office. He had already commissioned the new commander. The new commander and General Stubblebine came in. They had me sitting there in the office, and General Stubblebine, Bert, said, "Follow me," and pushed me in front of him into the new commander's office. He turned around to the new commander and said, "I need to talk to Sergeant Buchanan. Get out." You can guess what list I went to until I left the field station. I got every crap job there was from then on. But anyway, General Stubblebine got right up in my face and said, "Did you kill my computers with your mind?" And I knew that I could lie about it. And I just kind of heard myself say, "Yes, sir, I did." And this grin came over his face. If you've ever seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, the grin that comes across on General Hapgood's face in the movie is exactly the same grin that came over General Stubblebine's face. And he said, far effing out have I ever got a job for you. He yanked me out of there, took me to DC to start a unit that would initially kill enemy computers with the end result of hoping to control those computers so that we could make their missiles turn around and go back at them or drop into the sea or whatever, and corrupt their data and all that. Congress said, absolutely not. We're not going to do any of that. And so he took me out to the remote viewing unit and stuck me into the remote viewing unit. That's the whole story on that one.
Lynn, I have to tell the audience that Lynn is also very modest. He has so many stories that are like on the edge of your seat. He talks about them just like they're everything, that's like every day. And whenever I talk with him, I'm always on the edge of my seat saying, and then? Okay, look, we have a question here. What is on Titan? You mentioned that you remote viewed something on Titan, and somebody asked, well, what was there? What did you see on the moon Titan?
Extreme cold. Phenomenally extreme cold. And we were just, kind of drawing maps and all that. And I came across a hole in the side of a mountain, like a cave. And so my monitor said, we'll see what's inside. He's thinking minerals and all this. I went in and I found two beings in there who were conversing with each other. I have never met anything so alien in my life. Even their thought processes were so alien that even though I could tell they were communicating with each other, I could not even understand the gist of what they were talking about. Now, one of the things about controlled remote viewing is that I can access a person who speaks only Swahili or something, which I can't speak a word of, and I can get the gist of what they're saying and the meaning of what they're saying. But those two beings on Titan were the most alien things I have ever come across.
That's interesting. Well, folks, that's what Lynn saw on Titan. That's when you have these projects and you do these things happen, and there's always a story to tell. So, Lynn, somebody asked, you've actually already answered this, but maybe you can expand upon it just in terms of like the variety that you have had with this. Have you remote viewed other beings? I guess you're talking about aliens at this point. Someone also mentioned, have you remote viewed angels? So let me combine both of those into one. What's sort of the variety of other beings that you've ended up remote viewing? Again, I guess this is all be totally blind, meaning you wouldn't know that they were what they are before you do your session. But in terms of stuff that you've done, what kind of stuff out there? What's sort of a range of the stuff that you've seen?
Because you get blind tasking, just coordinates, and that's it. You don't know what you're viewing. I have never been tasked with viewing angels. I have been tasked with viewing all manner of alien contact, everything else, and aliens themselves, alien locations, alien planets, alien installations on Earth, and aliens that are here on Earth. They are, and one of the things I was even given, I think, 64 instances where I was tasked with a person and then they move you like 5 minutes forward. What I didn't know in each of these was they tasked me with a person like 1 minute before death and then moved me 5 minutes forward to find out what happened to the person afterwards. So many things like that. Many of the different species of aliens. And like I say, we've done these area books where we find sentient life on the planet, do a total assessment of their intelligence, their habits, their lifestyles, their politics, everything about their society. So yeah, we've done a lot of that. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, Lynn, this is a related question. Have you ever been visited by any form of alien life after you remote viewed them? Meaning, did they ever come back and say, "Hey, we got to find out who this guy was," and show up?
Visited personally or visited mentally?
In any way whatsoever?
The answer to that is actually no. I did have an abduction experience when I was younger, and an encounter with one when I was about 5 years old. Now, there was one of the installations on Earth. There were 5 major ones that we did, but there was one in Mount Zeal, Australia, and I was tasked to go in, find out the activity, do a floor plan, of the whole structure, everything else, and so when I got there, this, by the way, Pat Price had originally done this one, and they saw him there. And when he realized he was being watched, he got scared and he quit. But when I was viewing it, one of them came and said, "We know you're here watching us, and you're free to look." And they were very friendly, very open about everything. And so I went ahead and did the session, did the sketches, did the floor plans and all that. And they didn't mind at all. So, but that was a contact while I was viewing, not them returning a call. Yeah.
That's interesting. Lynn, somebody asked, what preparations do you go through prior to remote viewing, if any?
There's a thing called a cool down, and it's individual to each viewer. Some people, the thing is about a cool down is you have to get all the extraneous stuff out of your mind and clear your mind for the remote viewing. And some people will listen to music. Some people will meditate. One of my students goes out in his yard and starts stacking rocks into these cairns and has to meticulously balance the rocks. And the concentration required to do that gets his mind off everything, and he immediately comes in, does the session. I have found that for me, that if I do a cool down, I will have what feels like a fantastically great session, and the results are garbage. So through different experiments, keeping records and all that, I found that for me, if I have an important session to do, I will go clean up the car, come in, maybe wash the dishes, sweep the floor, do the session, do something else, and just make it a whap, whap, whap thing in a series of tasks to do for the day. And that's where I have my best results.
That's interesting. Then someone just asked, can a remote viewer manipulate the target in any way, or is it just a passive thing of observation?
It's supposed to be a passive thing of observation. There is a theory and some good documented data that confirms the theory that you cannot really remote view a target without in some small way affecting it. Now, the data that was collected, uh, we were not above taking that data, finding out what's going on, and creating remote influencing. And so, yeah, you can do that.
So that's how the remote influencing actually started back in the day.
Pretty much, it was a derivative of Inga Swan's CRV structure, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Somebody asks, does the ability to remote view fade with age?
I sure hope not.
Okay, I hope not too. It's just fades with lack of practice. That's interesting. That's a good one to remember, everybody.
Use it or lose it, yeah.
Use it or lose it, yeah. Okay, now, you may think that you've been talking about this all along, but I think some people think the way this person asked the question, as remote viewing sort of separate from psychic abilities. So the person asked, do you have psychic abilities, and is that needed to remote view?
Yes and yes. And the thing is that everyone has psychic abilities. The question is, why aren't you using them? And they have them to different extent. And let me explain something about, okay, you hear about remote viewing, and that's, psychic, using your psychic abilities. Controlled remote viewing is a different animal, okay? Controlled remote viewing, let's say your normal self is a tin can over here. Your psychic ability and your subconscious mind is a tin can over here. What we've got to get the two communicating is a string in between, okay? CRV is that string that connects the two. As such, CRV itself is not a psychic ability. It's a learned ability, and in fact, it's more of a martial art because what you have is the two minds. You also have a body mind, and so in CRV, you don't get the target or whatever. You feel the target, you see it, you hear it, you smell it, and you use your body to experience the target. And it can get to the point where you are so enwrapped into the communication line that your conscious mind can no longer tell that you're not at the target. You see it around you. You feel the wind in your face. You feel the sun on your skin. And that's called the perfect sight integration. And it can get to that point. But in CRV, you are using your physical being as a communication line between the subconscious mind, which is psychic, and the conscious mind, which isn't.
Wow. Okay. Then this is someone actually asked the question about the spaceship. So, was Lynn taught by an ET to fly a ship, and what did the military guys want to know about that?
I've never thought of it that way, but yes, I was taught. The the abduction experience I had, I'll shorten this for the time. I came to on the ship, and I was sitting there. Whenever I fly, I always get a window seat. Too claustrophobic to sit in the middle, and so anyway, there I was sitting about 3 or 4 seats from the window. This humongous guy with extremely pale skin came walking through, and I said, "Excuse me, can I sit by the window?" And he looked at me with this absolute terror on his face, turned around and ran out. And within a few minutes, a little gray with 3 of these big, huge guys came back, and they were hiding behind the little gray, like, I was some kind of a lion let loose from the circus. And so the gray kept trying to put me back under, and I didn't go under. So finally, he said, okay, you're going to have to come up front where we watch you and keep track of you. And so I knelt down by him. He was the pilot, and I was asking questions about what he was doing with the control panel and all that. And so he taught me. And so anyway, years later, that was about, that was when I was still in college. And the last thing I remember about it was that the pilot, when we were getting back on board the ship, it's back again, back on board the ship, I turned to him and I said, I'd like to remember this. And he said, well, you won't. The next thing I remembered was I woke up in the house where I was, and I was moving at the time to a new parsonage. I was a Methodist preacher at the time. And so I had slept on a pallet on the floor. I rolled up the pallet, put it into the U-Haul truck, and drove off, not remembering that the night before that, I had heard the thing land in the backyard and was planning to see what happened. For the next 25 years, with growing frequency, I couldn't leave the house without knowing I had forgotten something, go back and check and check and check and check and check. One day we were headed to church. My wife started making fun of me, and I'd gone back to check on the house. I don't know how many times. She said, have you checked the basement? Have you checked she said, did you check the backyard? And when she said that, it all came flooding back. And so anyway, I was in the military unit at the time. The next Monday, I went and gave encrypted coordinates for that because I thought it was false memory, and the other viewers found exactly what I had remembered. Several days later, I didn't know that one of them had turned me in. And several days later, I was up at the Defense Intelligence Agency, walking up to see the director, and two men in black stepped out into the hallway, pointed in to a small conference room, and they started questioning me. I thought that they wanted to see if somebody with my clearance had gone bonkers. That's not what they were interested in at all. What they were interested in is, how does that control panel work? And finally, one of them slipped, and I got the information that that's what they were interested in. And I grinned. And this interrogator, the men in black are interrogators, okay? This interrogator all of a sudden got flaming angry, and they were gone. But what I realized was they have one of these things that they've captured, and they don't know how to fly it. and that's what they were there to find out. So anyway, about a year after that, I was out at a classified location and found an old Army buddy that was working there. He took me to show me what he was doing, and it was a hangar of wreckage. And what had happened, they were putting the wreckage together to see what happened in midair. And we were walking through there, and all of a sudden I saw a piece of the control panel out of the UFO. And I said, that's out of a UFO. And it just echoed through that whole hangar. And the director came and basically gave me the bum's rush and just knocked me out of there. And so that's the story on that. But that was confirmation to me that it was not false memory syndrome. It was not just imagination, because I mean there was a piece of a very similar control panel. Yeah.
Okay. So this is sort of an interesting question that ties in. By the way, is the recording button still on for the other computer? Okay, let's just assume it's still working, doing whatever it does. Okay, so someone asked, can you tell if someone is remote viewing you?
If somebody is remote viewing me or looking at me psychically, yes.
Yeah.
If they are using controlled remote viewing, no. Some of the controls built into the controlled remote viewing means that you will not get caught because people cannot sense you. You have a facility where there's a guard and the dog walking around at night and all that, standing guard. And all of a sudden the dog alerts, looks up in the sky or something, and that gets reported. With controlled remote viewing, not even the dog can sense you're there. And so basically this is one of the reasons they liked controlled remote viewing, was because if they report it and the people in charge say, oh, there must have been somebody psychic looking or something, let's go to plan B. Okay? In controlled remote viewing, you never get caught. They never go to plan B, and so the information you get stays good.
That's interesting. Then I can tell you right now that you're giving everyone every single minute's worth of stuff. I mean, we're up to over 630 people watching right now live, and that's the questions are and the comments are racing through a mile a minute. So they're interested in what you're saying. Okay, this is probably going to be the last question. Have you remote viewed any, and the reason I'm asking this one in particular is because it's been popping up on the screen so often, so somebody really wants to know this. Have you remote viewed any terrestrial human cloning operations?
I have not been tasked with it, and no, I haven't. No.
Okay, I guess the reason that person asks is it's sort of a big thing in real and new science fiction movies that you end up seeing.
No, for personal reasons, I task myself and, should I buy this car? Should I buy this house? What should I do? And so on. But for other taskings, I get tasked blind. And so I never know. So I think the more appropriate answer is not that I know of, because I don't always get feedback. So I may have been tasked with those and got no feedback, so I don't know about it.
Okay, that's interesting. So Lynn, we have only 3 minutes, so I'd like to recap a little bit with your contact information and then have you add anything you want to say at the end. So Lynn's website is crviewer.com. Now that's crviewer.com. And that, in fact, is the best way to connect with him. And I have to also say that...
Oh, you can't see it because of that. Anyway, I have 2 books.
Actually, hold them up in front of the other camera because they will be on the edited one.
Okay. The Seventh Sense in English, and Il Settimo Senso, which is in Italian, and there's one Romanian book that I haven't been able to get a copy of, one Romanian translation that I haven't been able to get a copy of. So.
Yeah, that book that Lynn, that's a book that Lynn wrote, and it's The Seventh Sense, and I understand people can buy it on Amazon to this day. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's a great book. I have it myself. Actually, I have a couple copies myself. It's a really interesting book. So that would be a good way to get your extra dose of, like some people need an extra dose of coffee, if you need an extra dose of Lynn, the book is a great way to go at it. So it's crviewer.com. crviewer.com is the best way to get a hold of him. I want to say it's been great for you to be here. People don't know that Lynn's been very helpful with Farsight over a great many years. And again, he is a member of the board of directors for Farsight. So, he's been with us behind the scenes for a very long time. And again, he was the one who enabled me to publish my first book on remote viewing, Cosmic Voyage. Had he not selflessly told me they're not going to publish it if you have those names in there, then the book never would have seen the light of day. So that's the kind of guy Lynn is. He does things for what he considers to be the betterment of people, life, humanity, and he doesn't ask for stuff in return. So he's an unusual spirit, a good spirit. So Lynn, I'm just going to let you wrap up with saying anything you want for the next minute or two, and then I'm sure people will be waiting for your next live stream at Farsight.
Okay. Basically, you have the ability within you to do wonderful things, and the mental abilities you have. We had a webinar yesterday where I was showing the bent spoons and all that, and a lot of people don't know that you have those abilities of PK. You have the ability to see through time and space, and the thing is that by nature, those two minds aren't connected. If you can find a way to connect those two minds to each other and get them talking and get them to become friends, it opens an entire universe to you, and it's there and it's in you. And listen, thank you for your interest in this field. I have always felt that even one drop in the ocean raises the level of all ships. And I hope that the work I do is raising the level of humanity. That's really what I'm after. So anyway, I hope this has helped.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely certain people are going to be waiting for your next visit back and on live streaming. These live streaming things have become such a valuable new addition to what we do at Farsight. So anyway, I want to say thank you, Lynn, and I want to thank everybody for showing up today. And again, please don't get upset. I'm going to pull this live stream down in just a few minutes, and then we're going to edit it and put it back up in nicely edited form with better video and better audio and the whole 9 yards tomorrow. So that's what we do with these live streams. And so if you didn't see it live, or you didn't see the whole thing live, just wait 24 hours. You can watch the whole thing and it'll be all fixed up and polished. Okay, Lynn, I want to thank you so much, and thank you for everybody, and we will see you next time.